Welcome to the All In Podcast, where we talk to businessmen who are husbands and fathers. We talk about faith, family, fitness, and finance, all areas of life and how they all affect each other. So stay tuned for today's episode. Today we have my friend Jason Bekebrede on the podcast. He is a local high-performance, high-end builder and remodeler here in Southwest Missouri. We're actually in the same market, and we got to know him over the last few years through the building science community, through Steve Basic in Massachusetts, actually. And we end up seeing each other abroad more than locally. But he's the guy I go to when I have a building science question or need a connection locally with a sub, because he's been connected for a long time. I think he actually just celebrated his 20th anniversary of being in business. So today we get to talk about business, going from yourself, working by yourself, to having a team. Talk about him going from spec builds to custom, where he is now. A little bit about building science, how every domain affects your business, and why it's important to rise in all areas in your life. And we even go into talking about debt some. So stay tuned to this podcast with my friend Jason Bekebrede. Nice. So how did you get into construction? Did you grow up in
My grandparents were both. One was a builder; he did more commercial stuff. One was a carpenter. I'd always had an interest in it and architecture and that. And finally, 20 years ago, just kind of the spec market was really hot right then, and I took the plunge. Did one spec house, then did another one, and then I realized that okay, if I'm going to do this as a career, I'm going to have to be able to do more than just one at a time. So I brought on an investor, and we did 10 in the next year, and that's when the market in 8-9 fell, and we luckily got out of everything, but at that time we kind of parted ways. But the name Monticello had enough name recognition at that point that I wanted to make sure, I knew I wanted to keep going with it, so I made sure I could utilize the name and he could not. So I kind of kept going with that, and I just kept building every year on top of it for bigger and cooler customs.
That's awesome. So I have some friends who do spec homes, and I actually work with a builder who does high volume spec homes. He does about 100 plus homes a year right now. And I would consider them medium end, around the $1 to $1.5 million spec home. And what would you tell somebody starting out in spec homes? I mean, you obviously did it by yourself and you got an investor involved. What would be the pros and cons of doing spec versus custom from your experience?
Spec's a great place, I think, when you're first starting out to learn, because uh, you are playing with your own money. So if you make mistakes, if you do things like that, you're not, I guess, wasting a homeowner's money on stuff. You might lower your profitability, but you can, recover from that a lot easier than you can from a bad reputation as a custom home builder right out of the gates. But I mean, the thing I never did good is I always would treat them as if I'm building them as if they're my house. So I'm putting better windows in them. I'm putting better insulation. I'm putting things in them that really do matter, and as opposed to just going, here's the need level for that price point. Let's just do that, and then let's put a lot of pretty stuff in there and it'll sell. I wanted to go in there and create a home that, in 10, 15 years, it still looks real good because it was put together right.
Yeah, I feel like I would have the same problem in the spec home world. I wouldn't know how to build it on a budget that would actually sell, because my name's on it, so it's got to be right.
Exactly. That's exactly. I mean, we had really good windows in ours, and most people were using a silver line at the time, but it was one that we just put better windows in. I only had one person ever comment on it, that they were looking at one of the houses and they noticed they were better windows, and but everybody else, they wouldn't care at all. There was windows, they were clear glass. That's all they cared about.
A friend of mine, he does spec homes and he also does rentals. He's done it all cash with his own money over the last 10 years or so, and he's built up quite a rental portfolio, and then he'll build a spec home and sell it in just a few months. They're small, they're usually like 1,200 square foot or so, but the way he builds them is so cheap, like the pit of my stomach is just disgusted. He does
Yeah.
2x4 exterior walls. Like, everything is absolutely as cheap as humanly possible, and I just can't stand it.
Which we'll do 2x4 exterior walls even on our customs, but a lot of times we're using zip R on the outside of that, so that we'll do the half-inch minimum zip R. So we're adding another half inch to that. So, and we're getting the thermal benefit of the continuous insulation. So there, I feel like you can get by with 2x4 walls in our market, but I think if you do that, you need to have outboard insulation to make it work. If you're doing all inboard insulation, then you do need to have a 2x6 wall to get an adequate amount of R value there.
Yeah, he just does, and I love the guy, by the way, but just I couldn't build that way. He just does bat insulation, vinyl siding. We're talking like $200,000 little spec home or something.
Yeah.
And he makes good money because he can throw it up really fast and super cheap. And
well, and
it works for him.
Yeah, after you've done a lot of them, you start knowing you don't have that question in takeoffs of ordering how many square of vinyl do you need, different things like that. You just know from historical data that you send out this much, it's going to be just enough, or there's this many squares on the roof, and you can kind of value engineer that to make sure you're not opening, a new box for vinyl and you only needed two pieces of it. You might as well either pull back on the house, or you push the house a little bigger to make that full so you get the best bang for your buck.
Yeah. So most people watching are probably in the trades and are familiar with building, or are builders and remodelers themselves. So a question I would have for you is, at what point does the value on getting better selections and higher performance not really return? So if you were going to put $1 per square foot on a custom build, at what point is it now a low return on your investment? Like, hey, for $300 a square foot, like after that, it just starts, you get very low return on performance after that. Where would you say that is?
On performance, or on, I guess, just overall value?
Either or. Feel free to speak to it as a builder, however you would see it.
We always tell everybody right now that $250 a square foot for everything under roof. So figure your garage, your porches, everything is the same. Eventually, I want to break it down into tiers of square footage that we've got. How much bathroom, kitchen space do we have? How much living space? How much, or living in bedroom? How much garage? Unfinished, things like that, to get a better breakdown. But that just takes time, which at the current moment don't have the time to do that breakdown. But I think a lot of it on ours, it's being custom. It's more the value to the owner, because we've done some that have been 500 a foot condition, that they're just extremely high per square foot, but by the time it's all the value to the homeowner of what they actually get in that it's the everything that they wanted in there, that it's the tile they would want, it's the fixtures they would want it, and so it's I think it's hard to say what value it is on that, dollar wise, on what it would be to the real estate side, because most of these they might never sell for 10 years on to know what the true value is there, like what it would be on the market.
Gotcha. I've had many people ask me about the cost of building a custom home, and I'm clueless. I've never really built custom homes other than growing up, and it's not my forte. That's why we want you to help us when we build our home next year.
Yep. Well, a lot of it is the cost per square foot is just we've all got to end up doing it, but because it's kind of the natural thing that everybody goes towards. But I mean, it's almost like cost per square foot's kind of like do you buy a car by the pound? That you can't they're not the same thing. Years ago, a Toyota Camry and a Lexus ES300 were the exact same car, just branded different, but the Lexus cost a lot more because it had more stuff in it. But you couldn't go in there and look and say, well, they're the same thing, so they should cost the same. It's all a matter of what's in it. That, are you going to have better insulation, better performance in the long run, nicer cabinets, nicer countertops, and things like that. And then even square footage will adjust that cost per square foot up because you don't have as much bulk, inexpensive square footage that you do in a larger home.
Yeah. So like for cost perspective, with the shop that we're in now, this new shop that we built last fall, we built it like a high performance home as far as the envelope goes, right? We've had conversations about that we
Yep.
did 1.5 inch exterior insulation, 2x8 walls, insulated under the slab. And all in all, there's 5,500 square feet of floor space, 3,500 square feet of shop, and then 2,000 square feet of office spaces, break room, bathrooms, that kind of stuff. And we were able to do it for pretty close to $100 a foot, which is pretty low cost in my opinion. You know, we GC'd it, so we hired out the subs and everything, and then we did all the trim and painting and stuff in house because that's what we do. That's what we're good at. Is the
Did you
carpentry
figure in that in your figure in your number? Did you add the cost of you guys in there?
No, I have not added that in accurately yet.
Okay.
We'll add everything up when we're completely done. The exterior still needs siding, and so once
Okay.
it's all 100%, I'm going to tell you the numbers exactly and see what
Cool.
we're at. But I think we're going to be really close to just over $100 a square foot, which is I'm pretty happy with for
Yeah.
high performance.
Yeah.
And the cost, so we condition the entire space. It's 72 degrees out in the shop all summer long, and we didn't hardly notice the electric bill change.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just nothing to heat and cool this place, which
Well,
is
and most of
crazy.
the high performance stuff is really not that difficult or that costly in the long run. It's just a matter of being aware of what you're doing and watching it, taking the right steps at the right time, like your insulation on the outside, doing the slab insulation, things like that that didn't probably add huge amounts of cost, but they'll pay off tenfold because now your utility bills are almost nil.
Yeah.
And once you
And
hit
the
a temp
comfort.
right now, like what it is outside, probably once you hit a temp, it's easy to keep at that temp, especially without a lot of load outside.
Super easy. Yeah. So we were able to maintain the comfort in the winter too with just the mini splits. No
Yeah.
external heating source. And so we have a 3-headed mini split for the 2,000 square foot office space. So I'm going to say it's a 27,000 BTU mini split setup, tri-head. And then in the shop, we have two, I think 18K for 3,500 square feet. And this is like 17 to 25 foot cathedral ceiling in a 3,500 square foot space. We have two 18K units and keeps up no problem, which
Yep.
it blew my mind a little bit, to be
Yep.
honest, how efficient it was. And I would say, again, I haven't done it all out on a spreadsheet, but I would say we probably spent maybe 50K more on high performance between the zip, the exterior insulation, stuff like that. And the comfort, not just the energy bill, but the comfort level, being able to easily climate control where every corner, there's not the drafts, there's not the cold and hot spots
Yep.
like you get in old houses or poorly performing houses. To me, it's totally worth it because what do you pay? That's like 10% increase in cost to have high performance, and now you have
Oh,
the
yeah.
health benefits of air sealed building plus the efficiency and all of that. So it just
Well, and as
it
the
makes
years
sense.
go by and rates go up, it'll save that much faster.
Yeah. Yeah, and we want to be able to we've got quite a few solar panels that we haven't hooked up yet, but we want to be able to have a basic solar system, even for the shop,
Yeah.
so we can operate to some degree without power when the power is down. And we plan the same thing for the house. And it just makes so much sense to invest in the performance of the home, from my perspective, not being a
Yeah.
builder, but just looking at the data.
Oh yeah, I agree. We did one shop last year for a client, and he wanted it being more high performance, is why he reached out to us. And it was one we did very similar to what you did in yours. We didn't have as high as ceilings, but he's got I think 4 mini split heads in the offices, shop area, and then the main room. And it was he's made a comment that it's like they barely ever turn on, and it's like
Yeah.
so consistent in there because it's just one we thought it all through, and our ceiling is still just blown in insulation, but we just have, I think, about 2 foot of it up there, so there's just a lot of it. But we just did standard insulation. A lot of it you can do, I think, still is being pretty basic things and standard things, just a matter of thinking about the air sealing, thinking about how you're going to do it in a manner that it will perform better for you in the long run.
Yeah. So I technically met you through Steve Basic. I called him about a question on a waterproofing detail of some windows on a remodel we were doing, and he gave me your number. Right? I hadn't met you
Yep.
before. I hadn't even heard of you before. And so my question for you is, how do you get into high performance, building science, all of that? Like, what got you started in that world? Because I feel like we're kind of a anomaly around here, being that we travel around the country and learn from these guys.
Yeah, I had first kind of done it, let's see, it'd be 15 years ago now. We did a house down at the lake, and the homeowner brought up the idea of maybe doing the house as Energy Star. And so we dove, or it was me then, I just dove right into an Energy Star house, what's going to make it there, and all that. And we just met with HERS raters, kind of modeled the house, worked on all that, and then we went in and built the house. It performed real well, and through that learned a lot just about the that it's not that hard. It's just a matter of planning things out, thinking things through, and then we had done another one that was that way. That we did a SIP panel house that wanted to be Energy Star as well, and so we kind of learned more there, and then just after that, kind of just decided that, okay, it's crazy not to just build this way all the time. It really doesn't
Yeah.
cost that much more, and it's not that much harder. So let's just do this. That way, they're always, whether we get it rated or not, they're always going to work. And then just kind of kept going down those rabbit holes. Hooked up with Jake one time and went up there to Columbia for an event. Met Steve, Matt, I can't remember. Jackson was up there, a bunch of guys, and just kind of got to Catalyst. Those guys were there. Just kind of met all those guys and kind of started developing friendships with them in a little friend group that we still talk regularly. Just if any of us have questions, we can, or more, if I have questions, I can reach out to all of them and get answers.
Yeah, yeah, super valuable. I still blows my mind because I grew up with my dad, a builder, and so I grew up doing houses, decks, pole barns, and he's old school, right? He's been doing it forever, and he does it the way everyone else does it. And my dad's he was a mechanical engineer, so brilliant guy, but just had no concept of building science or anything. And so when we started out, we'd hire him occasionally when we were doing some kind of framing or rough work. We would hire him to come in and do it, and he would listen to us. He would do it our way, but he's always just like, whatever, man. You know, he, for some reason, he couldn't wrap his mind around the benefits and the ideas, even just like building a deck and putting air gaps to the ledger board. It's like every time you pull off a deck, that ledger board on your house is rotten out, and
Yep.
your rim joist is rotten out because it traps water, and just air gapping that and flashing it so that it can stay dry, or it can dry out when it gets wet. Just even all these little things that I've learned from people like Matt Reisinger and Peter Yost and all these guys. It makes so much sense to me being in it, but for people outside the building science world, I feel like they just go cross-eyed and they're like, what is wrong with you? You're just so picky. Like, who cares? Everybody does it this way. Do you run into the same
Yep.
thing?
Yep. Oh yeah, very much so. It's taken a while with a lot of trades and things like that to just kind of get them to, if nothing else, it's like, if you don't believe in it, that's fine, but just blindly follow. And just, this is what we'd like to have, like you said, the air gap. A lot of it's just getting air, leaving places for things to dry, that you don't want to ever get water in there. That I think Reisinger said, I can't remember I don't think he's the one that started saying it, but if it cannot dry, it'll die. That
Yeah.
if you get water in somewhere and it can't drop, it can't get out of there, get air behind it to dry it out, you're going to rot wood. Wood can get wet a million times as long as it can dry. If it gets wet a million times, but none of those times is it allowed to dry, it's not going to last that long.
Yeah, and I reached out to you a couple weeks ago on that remodel where all that rot under those windows, right? And
Yep.
I see that on virtually every remodel. At some point, their flashing or caulking detail on the outside of the windows fails, and then you get water just funneling in, has no way to dry, no way to drain, and it just rots everything out. So I mean, one of the walls, we looked at it last week, we pulled off the paneling on the inside and exposed it with Chad there. Completely rotten out. Like the whole wall, just a sponge. We
Yep.
just pushed the whole wall. And I know you've
Yep.
seen that, and it's like pisses me off because it's not that hard to not have to face these problems.
Yep.
And yet you see it all the time. It's like, and yet people are still building the exact same way that this house was built, and it just boils my blood.
Oh yeah, and that's one where I liked for years. Back when the market was, excuse me, slower, we did a lot of smaller remodel flip type things, and we would even do some water damage repair stuff. But even now, doing remodels, that's a lot of why I like doing them, because we get to see others' errors. We get to see once where they've messed up, and so now for my project managers that are both younger, that they can see once, oh wow, look what this did, that they didn't put a little kick out flashing on this small section of roof going out to the gutter, and now this whole section is just rotten, that they can look at and they can see, I could preach to them, they can see Jay, Catalyst, any of those guys say, you need a kick out, you need a kick out, but then whenever they actually see it, they're like, oh wow, we need to do this more often.
Yeah, for sure. So talk to me about your journey in the trades, learning how to make money. Because I feel like there's a stigma around the trades where you're not allowed to make money. If you're in construction, you basically have to be broke. You can't live a good lifestyle. And I started out the same way, right? And I looked around like, this is just how it is. You have to work a ton of hours. You don't make any money. And everyone in the trades is the same way. Like, how did you start bridging to actually build a business that provides value to your clients and supports a lifestyle you want to live, so it can actually be a career for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I first started out, my goals with it, any financial, just income like that, were a lot lower than they are now. But it was one that I kind of kept looking at it as that, for me to get bigger or get to that next level, to where maybe I can actually start to have that time where I can either go on vacation and not try to be working while I'm on vacation, different things like that I was going to have to bring on an employee to kind of man the helm while I'm gone. And I'd found Riley, and he's been with me now for, I think it's 6 years now, and it's one that it helped a lot there, and then it allowed me to get a little more onto the business side. And then I think it's just that mental thought of just, hey, this is a business. I need to run it like a business, not try to run it like a guy in a truck type thing. That we need, rules. This is how we're going to do business. I mean, every business has hours. It's like, we're going to have hours as well. That we're not just 24/7 available for our clients. I mean, if there's an emergency, we want to be there. We want to give them the best service we possibly can. But there's also places that, we've got to all have a personal life as well. We can't just be on call 24/7 for them.
Yeah, and that's another side that I've run into in construction, and I was guilty of as much as anybody starting out, of just, you're always available. 8 o'clock phone call, no problem, whatever. And then, family changes that, because you realize, okay, this does not work with family life, so
Yep.
we have to set some boundaries here. But then there's the pushback from clients, because every other contractor, GC, they'll just answer the phone and text you late at night, whatever you need. And so when you set those boundaries, and people sometimes take it, if you don't set it right, as though you don't care about their project.
Yeah.
Have you run into that at all?
A little bit. We've had some clients that I think we could have done anything and they would have been upset. But there's definitely some that do act that way. But a lot of the ones we have anymore are more business professionals or business owners themselves, and they seem to just understand that it's you need time off as well, because they're the same way.
Yeah, we started having a conversation in our production meetings. So we have different meetings and processes all the way from initial contact of a call all the way to punch out. And one of our meetings is we call a production meeting. And at that production meeting, we kind of set the ground rules. We introduce them to their project manager, whoever's managing their project. and kind of hand it over to them, and then we go over those things of the hours, the phone numbers, job tread, how it all works and how it's to be used and how we're going to interact with them. And we've had very positive feedback from that, just setting the expectation and the agreement up front of this is how we serve you guys, and this is how we serve our team. We protect them when they're back home, right? And then guess what? When they clock back in, we're all in to serve you guys on your project. And we've had no pushback on that since we implemented that in our process.
And I think a lot of it's just letting them know that here's the hours that we work, and we're happy to meet with you or answer the calls, answer texts, stuff like that in that time frame. But these are the hours that we are off. So if you call then, we'll get back with you. It'll probably be the next morning. And unless we read that and for some reason we decide that, I leave it up to them on the project managers that if you want to respond to those, you're more than welcome to, but you don't have to at all. You can go in there and just leave it, deal with it in the morning, or if you feel like it's necessary to kind of keep things rolling, that you want to respond, go for it.
Now, what was the leap in hiring on your project managers? How did you go from one to now you have payroll, substantial overhead, and did you just start to get to where you had too much work and there was enough money there, or did you then have to hire them on with a little bit of risk to then scale to be able to get the income? What that journey look like for you? Because a lot of people don't.
We had Trevor came on about a year ago now. Here in a few weeks will be his 1-year anniversary, and he had actually reached out to me on he was moving here from out of state, and reached out to me to that he was moving up here looking for a job, and so I had suggested to him I told him to send me his resume, and if I'd look at it, or if he had anybody that if I wasn't able to hire him, who might be willing to or looking. And I saw his resume and I was like, okay, this kid looks sharp. So ended up scheduling an interview with him, and we kind of hired him almost on that second one, that it was the scenario that it was, let's hire and let's build the business around that. And it's we had a lot coming up. We could pull some stuff forward that helped, and a lot going on, but it was a little bit blind on it that, as long as all this stuff that's in kind of pre-construction goes, we're set. If half this doesn't go, we'll still be fine, but it'll be slower.
So there's just a little bit of risk that you're taking, that you're assuming he's going to provide enough value that you'll be able to then sell more jobs and cash flow it to make it work.
Yeah, and just trying to keep it to where. Yeah, and then keeping it to where then it allowed me to go in there and divide up jobs that right now the goal is for Trevor and Riley to each have kind of that 2 to 3 jobs going at one particular time that they are managing, to where before, if we would have had 4 to 6 jobs, it would have been me and Riley only doing it, to where he's dealing with more of the on the ground stuff, I'm dealing with more of the office side, and then trying to do some of the on the ground stuff. That it was we would start to get into some just overwhelmedness at time.
Yeah. So have you gotten the stigma from your clients? And I think we're kind of both in the same boat of pretty much all of our clients are business owners themselves at this point. I think it's probably the same for you. You mentioned that. So we don't get it as much, but there used to be a stigma around people in the trades making money, as though you're somehow ripping people off if you're making money in the trades. There's something about it where you have to be at $25 an hour or $30 an hour if you're in the trades. You can't actually make a profit. Have you run into that? And what was that journey like to get to the other side, where now you're respected as a professional in the industry, where people pay you for your expertise?
We've had that a little bit on some percentages that we charge on different things. That we've had a handful of people over the years kind of balk at it, that you're charging this much for that, and but luckily we're, I guess, able to get to a point where we had enough other work, we could kind of just say, okay, if that's not a good number for you, then sorry, I guess we're not a good match, so good luck, and just everybody part ways. Nobody gets upset or mad or anything like that. Just kind of let it go. And but yeah, there's definitely a lot of that people they see a number like for a builder on a new home that we're charging this much percent, and they see this big number down at the bottom. They're like, "My God, you're rolling in it," and it's like, well, that's the gross there. We're not. We got to pay salaries, we got to pay for trucks, we got to pay for rent, we got to pay for insurance, we got to pay all this other stuff that it waters that down pretty quick. That we don't go in and I mean, we're making money, but we're not by any means getting rich.
Yeah, I think part of it is the market that we live in, South Central Missouri. You don't have to have a license to do a lot of this work.
Correct.
In a lot of the areas around here, you can be what I call a chuck in a truck, right? You throw the
Yep.
ladder in the back, there are paintbrushes in the back, and now put painting so-and-so on the side, and you're a business, right?
Yep.
And that's super common, and people tend to correlate as that's how every business is run, because that's what they're
Yep.
used to seeing. They just hire chuck in the trucks. I think because of the quality of those small businesses have gotten so bad, and the experiences that people have had have just been so terrible, from customer service to quality to warranty to communication, all of it. I think it's easier now for us as professionals that run a business, that serve our clients at a high level, produce a high quality product. I think it's getting easier for us to charge what it's worth, because there's been so many people have been burned by these chuck in a truck guys.
Oh,
that,
yeah.
They're starting to get leery of them. And
Yeah, I'd agree, and I think the insurance is one as well. That's a big one. That there's a lot of those chucks in a truck. They don't carry their insurance, and but if I mean, there's Missouri statutes. I used to have it always with me because I would be talking with trades, and they're like, "Well, I don't need it. It's just me, or it's me and my son, or anything like that." But it's very clear on what it's a lot different in construction in Missouri than it is in if you owned a little bait shop. You could get by without work comp insurance if it was just you, your wife, and maybe one employee. But it was if it's you're in construction, same crew, you've got to have work comp insurance just to be legal. But no one ever homeowners are bad about checking it, and then the jurisdictions around here, RHBA's tried to get them all to check it, but they kind of want to refuse. They want to go in there and just tell everybody, oh, if you feel like you're exempt, here, just sign this sheet, and we're saying you said that, so we're letting it go.
Yeah, and to be fair, I started out as what I would consider a chuck in a truck. And I didn't start out as a business owner. I started out just as a craftsman. I loved building cabinets and had a custom cabinet shop and started out that way. And we didn't actually get workman's comp and everything until 2016, when we stepped into the commercial world.
Yeah.
And where you had to have high levels of insurance when we started doing apartment complexes. And then we've maintained it ever since. But that's a big line item, when you're paying workman's comp for everybody, because it's like a tax.
Oh yeah, the number I get that bill every year, and I'm just like shaking my head every time I get that bill. It's just like, my God, there's a chunk of change gone.
Yeah, and where we're at, like, unless it's something that was just absolutely massive, like somebody died or something, we're just going to pay out of pocket for an accident that happens on the job site. And that happened last year. One of our guys fell. I was actually working on building this shop, and he broke his wrist. And so we just wrote the check and paid the bill, because insurance is such a for-profit business. They're going to recoup the money, fivefold, and so it ends up being essentially a tax. Like, you never see that money again. You do not get rewarded for it. You just wave bye-bye to it, and that's part of the cost of business.
Yeah, the all that stuff is kind of infuriating at times when you go look at how much you pay in, and then if you were to have, like you said, one claim, that your rates would either skyrocket after that, or they would drop you after that because of that one claim. And it's like, well, I've paid you $500,000 over the last X amount of years. Where's that? Or what? Don't I get any good graces because of that? Or the minute I cost you one dime, it's this isn't a good situation for us anymore.
Yeah, I think we're in the wrong business. If we really want to make bank, we should be in insurance, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Especially just above the agent type one. Those companies, I'm sure it's pretty profitable.
I would think. So we here at All In, we talk a lot about what we call the core four: faith, family, fitness, and finance, and how every domain affects every other domain. And so what's been your journey with those different domains and how it affects your business? Like I know for fitness, a couple of years ago, you really got serious about your health and you started working out and you lost some weight, and like share with people how that affected your other domains when you started focusing on your health and how you feel now, how you think
No,
about
yeah,
it.
it was. I'd worked out for I've done CrossFit for about 10 years now, but I decided a couple years ago, year and a half ago, it was all diet was with the change I needed. So I made a big change there and lost 20 to 30 pounds and just leaned up a lot and just, I think it helped me just in one, feeling better, more energy, and then it's always been my stress relief. So I've gotten even better about putting it as a priority that, I mean, you start seeing results, you want to see more results. So it turns into a priority in your life, and not necessarily saying it's more important than anything, family or any of the other stuff, but it's just nice to go in there and it's that little uh, relief or that stress killer, things like that during the day that I can do. And I just kind of make sure that every week I can go, at least say 4 times to get that stress relief, maintain the health, but then also just stay in a better place mentally.
Yeah. How would you say that focusing on your health and taking care of your body directly affected your business? Like how you show up, your production, how you run meetings and work with your team? Like how would you say it
I
affected your...
I think just in overall confidence and stuff like that, that it's one even though in the business side I've always been very confident, very capable there, is just one, I think you just get that added little bit whenever especially when you start seeing the results of all that hard work, and you just start gaining another little level of confidence in that and what you are doing.
Yeah, I think people miss this a lot, and I miss this too. I was a scrawny guy. I'm still pretty small, but I've put on 20 pounds in the last few years of just muscle. I'm still very lean, but and I really got serious about my fitness just a few years ago, similar time that you did, just maybe a year ahead, and started working out hard, and not with weights. I was doing more calisthenic stuff, but even in that world, putting on some pounds, and it changed how I felt physically. And it changed my mindset and attitude towards myself. And I think people that don't work out don't understand the mental benefits of working out. And when you put in the work, right? When you show up at the gym and your clients aren't watching, your kids aren't watching, but like you're hammering it and you're
Yeah.
sweating and you're pushing through when it hurts, and that's by choice. Then when you face the difficult situations with your family or with work, like that you're the guy that shows up. That you can deal with hard things because you choose to do that at the gym. And
Yeah.
I did not understand that concept until I started working out and then seeing how that affected every other domain of my life, and for the better. Not just
Yeah.
the physical feelings, but the mental side of it. Have you experienced the same thing?
Oh yeah, I agree fully there that it's kind of like haven't really ever done any cold plunges, but I've heard people talking on those that when you do that, you're doing something that's really uncomfortable, really hard to do right away. What part of the day it is, morning, afternoon, evening, but it's one that similar to working out, that you're going in and you're doing something that's real difficult, that is going to be uncomfortable. You're going to, really hate life maybe for about 10 minutes, but you push through it, and then you feel so much better afterwards that so when other things do come around in your life that are difficult, you're ready for it. You just go at it. You don't think much about it because of that track record of what you're doing, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. It builds a level of confidence and diligence and discipline into your life that carries through, not just in the gym, but it carries through to other areas as well. What other domains of your life in family or faith have you noticed that directly affects your business domain? Most people probably listening to this are business owners. For me, if things are not good with me and my wife, the way you
Oh
show up
yeah.
to business, not that great, right? And if there's
Yeah, and I'd agree.
tension or
Family's a big
bitterness
one
or any of
there.
that.
Just in both sides, going both directions with it. That whenever we had kids, it was one definitely wanted to make that a focus that it wasn't all relying on my wife. That it was one that I was, they're picking the kids up, getting them ready, being able to, if they're homesick, I'm usually the one that'll try to stay home first, just because I do have a little more flexibility in my schedule, but as well just want to definitely be the parent. But it's one I think it helps on both sides. It also can be that stressor for work that if things aren't great at home, whether you're having a fight, just something difficult going on there, things like that, you do carry it to work. But
Yeah.
I think overall it's helped me set those boundaries like we were talking earlier with the hours and all that, because now I I guess I know I'm not going to be available in the evening, and whenever I go pick my kids up, I'm you know dad right now. I'm not Jason. If I'm bringing them to tutoring or anything like that, I might have a small window in there where I'm back working, but they're the priority, not the business.
Yeah. No, I know you well enough to have seen how involved you are in your children's lives, particularly picking them up and running them to tutoring and school and all that, more so than most business owners. And most business owners, small business owners, they tell themselves the story that, well, I'm just a business owner, I don't have time for that, right?
Yeah.
Was this some way you always showed up, or is there a pivot point for you when you realized I need to start showing up this way? I'm not going to let my business run my family life. I'm going to actually have my business support my family life, like you were just talking about, so I can be flexible and do these things.
Yeah, I think it was one that I feel like I always have done that since my daughter was born, but I'm sure there's times where I got uh, on the other side of that, and it probably helped some early on in it until about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the office was in my house, so it definitely made a lot of that a lot easier. That especially before they went to school, that if they needed to be home for something, it's like, yeah, that's fine, just leave them home. I just won't head out today. I'll be in the office all day, and that definitely helped that. But I feel like I had made that decision early on when they were born that I wanted to definitely be a real good dad, like mine was to me. That it was he worked for somebody, but it was one he was always there and available. That as much as he possibly could. So when he got home, it was just dad. It wasn't other stuff he had to do.
That's awesome. Not a lot of people can say that. That's how they grew up. That you want to be like your dad and how you relate to your kids. That's beautiful. What would you say to somebody who owns a small business like you or I, who is telling themselves that story or that excuse that I can't show up for my family because I've got this business to run and it just takes a ton of time?
I think a lot of it is just always remembering, one, that you only have X amount of years with the family. That the business, I mean, hopefully your business will last 20, 30 years, and but you're only going to have, I mean, if it's kids, you're only going to have them around for 18 years in the house. So take advantage of that time. Don't get so busy that you miss out on those years, especially those earlier years. Because I mean, my daughter's 11 now, and she's already starting to get to that. I want to go hang out with my friends. I don't want to hang out with mom and dad anymore. And so I mean, you're only 10 or 12 years in, but I think a lot of it is as well as just looking at it. You need balance in your life. That going in there and just focusing just on work and all that can be great, but one day you're going to be like, okay, I'm burnt out on this. But if you can mix in the family side with it, you kind of get that balance that helps remind you, one, why you're doing what you're doing, because you're trying to give a good life to them, but it as well gives you the just that time away from the office. And sometimes you might mentally still be working, but you'll solve a problem while you're not thinking about it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, that kind of leads into the faith domain. When we talk about faith at All In, we're talking about like our relationship with God or a higher power and our relationship with ourself. And for me that grew up kind of in the church, you could say, no, we didn't go to church regularly. We're in that environment. You could say my relationship with God or understanding or knowledge of God was good, but my relationship with myself was terrible. Like how I viewed and talked about myself in my own mind. Like what's been your journey as a man, father, business owner? Call that the trifecta of insanity when you're a husband, a father, and a business owner. To develop mindsets and habits. For me, like morning routines with meditation and just being able to be still and not let the stress just compound and compound. Like what's been your journey with that of how to balance like the mindset and faith side of your life?
I think a lot of it is the routine, like you were talking, that learning over the years, even when you're the most productive, when you're better at doing this, that, or the other. That for me, I get up early and I'm in the office usually by 6 a.m. and my project managers show up between 6:30 and 7. So I've got 30 to, if I get here early, maybe up to an hour of uninterrupted time that I kind of almost get a routine as to I'm going to get in, I'm going to filter through priority emails, get caught up on all those, and then I'm going to kind of go through my day, figure out, okay, what all do I have to do today? What does my route look like for today? If I've got to head out, when do I need to go? When do I need to leave? Different things like that. And then just kind of start building my day based on that to be the most productive at stuff when I'm, I guess, use the times I'm the most productive with in the office, use those to my advantage. And if I get to where I get a little burnout, it's like, okay, we're going to call an audible. I'm going to check on jobs now, because instead of trying to just sit here and stare at the computer, force it through, it's like, let's just go get a change of environment. Let's go out. We need to check on jobs anyway. Let's go do that now. And then you can come back and sometimes your mind's in a better place and you can just knock out what you started to do.
Yeah, I've heard it said that stress comes from not having a plan.
Yep.
So in other words, if you have more on your plate than you can plan out, you're stressed. Whereas
Yep.
if everything's in its spot, and we've talked about time blocking and like, okay, I'm doing estimates that in those days. So yeah, the estimate needs to be done, but it's not for today, so I don't have to carry that because it's time block, it's scheduled, right? There's a plan
Yep.
for it. If you can live your life where everything is planned out, there's not the stress there because there's a way forward. It starts to collapse once there's no plan to take care of it all, right? When it starts
Yep.
to fill up and overflow your schedule. And that's where, developing skill sets of time management, or like you're talking about, just getting a different environment and changing your scenery so you can get out of that funk, and so you can get it from, view it from a different perspective rather than just being overwhelmed and in the
Yep.
cloud.
Yeah, I do a lot of that on the just blocking for, I don't necessarily put it on my calendar as much, but trying to go in there and plan times to work on estimates, things like that, trying to stay up with architects whenever we've got one now, they're doing some final revisions, and I was reaching out to him yesterday. It's like, okay, what does your time frame look like on getting these done? Because now I know that they're looking at by the end of the week probably. So now I know, okay, this week I probably don't have to mess with that, so let's focus on these other things. So when I get that next week, I can have the time available and I can get in and knock that out, and hopefully we'll move on to the next phase on that project.
Yeah, and not living your life in chaos like most
Yeah.
small business owners do.
Or reactionary, trying to be proactive. I
Yeah.
tell my project managers all that all the time on just everything we're doing. It's like we need to be proactive. If you get on your heels, you get reactive to stuff. It's hard to ever get off your heels. You're going to be there for a while because you just can't. It's hard to get flipped back over and be proactive after that.
So how do you teach that to your team?
I think a lot of that's just bringing it up to them, and then times when I see they start to get on their heels, letting them know that, guys, you're on your heels. You need to, you might be lost on this one, or you might be on your heels on this one, but here's where I see you made that mistake to get there, and here's where I would maybe have done this different so that you're ready for it. And I mean, obviously help them. Don't just leave them to the wolves there, but it's like, hey, let's figure out how we'll get off this, but making sure they see the error in that here's how I got here, and let's not do that again.
Yeah. Do you end up running your schedules for your projects, or do your project managers, do they dictate their schedule?
They dictate them now. Whenever I had originally hired Trevor, it was like last Memorial Day, but he started in August, that it was when we went and made the change of they're managing their schedules, they're managing or inputting all their draw information, different things like that they are doing, and then I'm kind of reviewing it all. We'll have 2 weekly meetings, and during one of them we try to go pull the schedules up in JobTread, and we'll at the minimum talk about the schedules and just what's coming up, what's this, and I'll look at the schedules a lot and try to, hey, I think you could move this up there, I think you could consolidate these two, or different things like that, just to make sure I'm staying up on it, and pushing them a little bit on finish time frame, that it's not one that it's this endless time we have to be able to just go in there and, well, we didn't get to that this week, so we'll do that next week. It's not a big deal. It's like sometimes it is a big deal. We can't let that date just keep pushing.
Yeah. So we grew up quite differently. I grew up in what Americans would consider poverty. My dad made very little money. We had nothing essentially other than the basic necessities of life. And so I had a lot of scarcity mentality around money, even as a business owner, and I had to learn how to break free and grow in that. And also some in the church, it was almost like praise to be broke and have to trust the Lord to provide. But in learning to make money in business, like, it affected every area of my life positively. In other words, money was a good thing, and it improved my marriage. And we just have a single income home. My wife's a stay-at-home mom. And so, like, figuring out the money game affected every other domain way more than I would have realized. Have you had that journey where you struggle with money and then you get to the other side, and when you're not stressed about money all the time, and see how much peace it brings, and even relationally with your family?
Yeah, it's one, when we first started out, I mean, there were some very lean years, and my wife was always amazing that she had a job, she worked, and we kind of always based our living on her income, just so that we had that, we wouldn't end up in a really bad position. And but I think living through those lean years, living through that 8, 9, 10, after the housing market kind of fell, I'm glad I did, because it was one there was a lot of years it was not fun at all. It was probably led to a lot of fights at home and just stress and all that, but it was one that it taught you to be able to live lean if you had to, that you're not and that you still, even though it still, I guess, plays into a lot of decisions I make business wise, that it's like I want to go in there and always keep reserves, things like that, so that God forbid if that hit again, it's not one that there's the stress right away of, well, crap, we ran out or this job didn't happen, and what are we going to do now that, and you got to start letting people go, anything like that. I've always tried to keep it to where it's like we've got enough reserves, we can weather some storms.
Yeah, and I think that's a service to your team and your family as well as your clients, because with that mindset and that business structure that you have, you'll be able to be in business for a long time. Because when other people are just up to their dead in the eyeballs and have no reserve when things go wrong, they're just going to go out of business. And you've set your business up for longevity, and so that you can weather the storms, you can weather the ups and downs, and still be able to serve your clients. And that's
and I think a lot of it's minimizing debt. Yeah, minimizing debt as well. Just trying not to bring on much debt unless you have to. That I think our vehicles are our only debt, really. But they're ones that obviously vehicles sell. So if push came to shove, you could throw them all in Facebook Marketplace, and in a matter of a month, you could probably be free of all of them. And you might take a loss on some to get rid of them, but you're that's a smaller amount of your reserves you're eating just to clear the tables. And now we're debt free, and we can hold on that much longer.
Yeah, for sure. What would you say to business owners who are wanting to take on debt to scale or get that leverage, like just from your journey of being in business for 20 years and making good financial decisions in your company so you can have that reserve to weather the storms, even though you've grown slow over the years? Like, what would you speak into someone's life that's wanting, sees all the people on Instagram and blow it up and get all the fancy trucks and everything right away, right?
Oh yeah, I think a lot of it's the just trying to grow slow, like you said, that it's not trying to grow way too fast and you get to where in a matter of a year or 2 years you add 5 employees and 4 trucks and all this, and because you're going to get to where you just can't keep up with it all. That your job, whether if it's you love, like for you love doing trim cabinets, stuff like that, and if that's the part you're doing, that your job's totally different now. You're not doing any of that at all. You're focusing just on managing all the plates to keep everybody on a job, keep everybody everything kept up on and all that. And I think a lot of it is just even the equipment, things like that, is making sure that it's going to make you money. That if it's you brought on a project manager and you're wanting to see once, okay, I need to get a truck for him to drive. It's like you can always weigh the idea of just paying a mileage on their own vehicle depending on what they drive. Yeah. You can obviously buy used. Our first one was a used truck that I had started with, but just weigh all those. Look at all your options there. Don't go in there and just think that, well, I need to have the brand new truck or the really nice truck with logos and everything on it right away. It's like, go with something, look at the mileage area, look at used vehicles, look at different options that might not be your end goal, but it at least gets your feet wet to see if that's the direction you want to go. If it's bigger equipment you're buying, skid steers, anything like that, I've never bought any of that, but I mean, I know I would always be looking at how much is that going to get used, and is it gonna pay for itself and make me money? Or is it just going to be one of those cool things that we've got that's a convenience, but we'd be better off to go rent one even 24 times a year we might need one.
Yeah. I know we got to wrap up here in a few minutes, so we'll start winding down here. But we both, I think, have similar views on cash in business and not leveraging yourself and just running a business for longevity and growing slow, whatever that looks like. And and you nor I wear the tool belt on. We are CEOs of our business and we work in the business still, but we don't go out and do the production side of things. Which for a lot of people, it's really hard to get to that point where they can trust their team members to do their job. And so you can stay in the office, you can just sell or whatever your role is, but not actually out producing the product. How have you been able to trust and empower your team to be able to do that? Or has it just been trial and error, catching the mistakes, clean up behind them, and then rinse?
There's some of that, and then some just pushing myself to do just that because I'm very particular about the way I like things done on different things, and it's one that getting myself to go in there and just trust them with, here's this schedule, do this, and then or knowing that it's like, okay, you're headed towards a mistake, and then trying to just sit back and watch them make a mistake and be like, okay, I hate that we had to do that, but it's probably the best way for you to learn. And
one of the things we say, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
One of the things we say is mistakes are welcome on our job site as long as we learn from them, right?
Yeah.
Like that is part of the cost of your team and helping them grow is allowing them to make mistakes, to screw up, feel the pain of it, not because you're piling shame or anything like that, but just they screwed up, look at the data, right? And then, okay, how did we get here? how is this not going to happen again? Where was the chink in the process that we need to tweak so we don't end up in this spot that feels like crap?
Oh yeah, and a lot of it is I've always felt with mistakes that we have on jobs, whether it's us or trades or anybody, is it's right whenever it happens, it's like, let's right now forget about who messed up, anything like that. Let's just focus on how do we fix this, and let's get that done, and then after that's done, we can go back and we can really look at who made the mistake, where did we go wrong, where was the error at, and we can now go in and kind of just plan to fix that and make that not happen again.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think the culture is so important in your company. When you start beating people up for making mistakes, people aren't going to stick with you long term.
Yeah.
This is the last thing I'll share before we close out, but one mindset shift I had to make, and this was back to the money side of small business in construction. A lot of people don't know how to make money in construction. And in other words, they don't know how to provide the value and charge for the value that the clients are happy to pay for their professional service. Like, you have to be good, right? People aren't just paying you because you have a business. Like, you actually are a professional, you provide a lot of value, but is just in the mindset of, I owe it to my clients to charge them what it takes to deliver this product with profit. Because if I don't charge where I'm making a profit in the company, then there's not the longevity there. In 10 years, 20 years from now, I'm not going to be around to be able to warranty and service them.
Yeah.
And so I owe it to my clients to charge what it costs to deliver the product. And when you can just get past that mindset of poverty and whatever scarcity that you struggle with, and find that it's like, morally, you owe it to your clients to charge them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to be able to be around. And you owe it to your team, you owe it to your families to charge a living wage.
Yeah, and that's what we do I tell a lot of clients and everybody that on trades, we go to trades that they're not the cheapest, but they have been around for years, and they'll continue to be around for years because they do charge money for what they do, and they do make a profit. So our plumbers on the third generations there, that they've been around for a long time, and they will continue to be around for a long time, which is great for the client, because then it's one that now, if there's ever a plumbing issue, even 10 years down the road, there's a very good chance that plumber's there still. And whether, it's probably not a warranty item, but it's one of those that they could come in and they know what went on. They know how it was all put together, and they can make the correction on it, or add on to it, or remodel it, or anything like that, because they've been around still. It's not somebody else walking in looking at it saying, yeah, I don't know what they did here.
Yeah, love it. Well, anything you want to close out with? How can people find you? I know you're on Instagram. Share whatever you want to share in closing out before you got to run.
Yeah, we're on Instagram, Monticello Custom. You can find us online, homesbymonticello.com. Active in the Springfield HBA. Definitely reach out if you have any questions.
We'll leave links down below as well when we post this, so people can find your social and where you're at. Jason, I appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you next time. It's funny that we live close, but we see each other just as much abroad on the other side of the country as we do locally.
That is very true.
Dinner, so. All right. Take care, Jason. Appreciate you coming on.
We'll see you. Thanks. Bye.
Right, bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the All In Podcast. As always, anything we talked about, all the links are down below if you want to follow up with us. And if you could do us a massive favor, and wherever you're listening or watching this podcast, give us a thumbs up and leave us a 5-star review. And then share this episode with somebody who you think might get value from it. Until next time, go all in.